Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wholehearted Loving. I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Georgiana.
Today we are going to be talking about lies. The lies we told as children, why we came to the conclusions that we needed to do that, how that carries forward into our lives today, and how we can make some more conscious choices and face ourselves a bit more honestly. But before we do that, we are going to do a body-based self-connection practice. G, will you lead us through something?
Yes, and this one you can do as I show you it now. You can also pair this as the second part to another practice we did in an earlier episode where we raised our shoulders on the inhale and dropped it on the exhale. But I'll show you the second part of that practice right now. So, as usual, you're going to find your anchoring point, your connection point. Where does your body feel connection to another body part or to a surface? And notice your breath. What is your breath doing right now as you feel that connection point? And we're going to do a little movement with the shoulders here. If you'd like, you can combine it with breath. So we're going to go with the right shoulder first. And I go with an inhale, bringing my shoulder up to my ear. Exhale, rolling it back. It's a very subtle movement, slow and steady. Again, when you're ready, you can go with an inhale, raising shoulder up, exhale, rolling the shoulder back. Notice whether that's comfortable to go at this slow pace or whether it's super uncomfortable to do things slowly. It's good information. And then Steph, I see you going to the other side. So just going on the left side, same thing. Inhaling, bring your shoulder up. Exhale to roll back. And just pausing there when you're finished, maybe giving things a wiggle out, but we're going to add a little bit more. And this is doing the opposite. We're going back to the right side. Inhale, bring your shoulder up. Exhale, roll it forward. So it's a pattern that most of us are not used to. So notice how that feels. And we'll do that 3 times here. And when you're ready, switching to the other side, the left side.
This is a movement I never do on its own.
Yes, but our joints are meant to be able to move in all those ways, right? And we hold a lot of tension when we don't move our joints in the ways that they can move.
Wow.
And this is a really useful practice for me because my old programming is like, do stuff fast. And like, what's the point? And it feels really pointless to sit here and just barely move my shoulders. It's not even a movement that I necessarily feel right in the moment of this feels really nice or this feels really good. So it really pushes up against my old programming that says only do stuff that feels useful and then do it fast. But what it does is it helps me create more comfort in slowness because I had no comfort in slowness before. And when you have comfort in slowness, life becomes better and easier.
It does.
Right? The other thing is sometimes we can be so emotionally shut down. Our nervous systems can really be shut down. If anyone has ever experienced depression, you will know what it feels to be so overwhelmed, like you're just checked out. Body has sort of given up. And when I work with people in those states, we're just trying to bring a little bit of movement and activation. We're not saying, let's go have a shower, let's go clean your house. Those will feel too big. But I'll ask someone, can you just raise your shoulder up and down?
Mm-hmm.
Can you roll one shoulder to the back? And they'll have access to do that. And that begins shifting out of that really stuck state,
Mm-hmm.
right? And helps them do the next little piece because they're at the point where they're telling me, I don't want to feel stuck anymore, but I don't know. The other things feel way too big. And so I do nothing. And then I'm hard on myself for it. So sometimes we laugh at, well, can you just squeeze your hand and release it? And they'll think, well, why are we doing this? But that squeezing the hand and releasing, that rolling the shoulder becomes, do you feel enough energy and desire right now to stand up? Like, oh, okay, you can stand up. What about walking towards the kitchen and getting a glass out for a drink? Oh, I could do that. And we just slowly add one little piece by one little piece, and it's slow and it's small. So that's why practicing these things that you think are slow and small and useless are really helpful, because most of us dismiss the significance of slow and small and seemingly useless.
Yeah, that was certainly my MO, to dismiss. Just period. To dismiss, period.
Dismiss
But
everything.
definitely,
Stephanie
yeah.
Hunter dismisses everything.
At my birthday last month, um, for people in our communities, the people me and G spend a lot of time with, we do appreciation circles for birthdays often. And that means a person sits in front of you and tells you all the ways they appreciate you. They love bomb you and appreciate you, and one after the other. And at my circle this year, one of the women said she appreciated how slow and intentional I am, slow moving and intentional. And that hit me so well because I'm aware that I am now that way so much more than I had been before, you know?
When I met you, I would not describe you as slow moving and intentional.
Yeah.
I love it. And I know now, when I heard someone say that, everything inside me was like, oh, yeah. Isn't that nice? That not that slow and intentional is better, but I was happy for you that you have access to that. That if you want to be slow and intentional, you feel free to be, and you
Yeah,
find comfort in that. And if you want to be like just, big and loud and fast and hard and dismissive of everything, you could be that too.
I sure can. Yeah. Feels nice to have access to all these different parts of me, really,
Mm-hmm.
and time and space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about lies. In some previous episode, we made a note to talk about lies. And this is a pretty broad topic, but generally, I kind of want to talk about how we come to a place of needing to tell lies, like
Mm-hmm.
developmentally and experientially,
Mm-hmm.
and how that becomes a bit of a default. Wanting to be kind to people can cause us to tell lies, needing to protect ourselves. There's all kinds of little unconscious reasons we might have to tell lies in our present form as adults that might not be necessary. So I want to shed a bit of light on how we got there and how we can be slower and more intentional with how we want to
Right.
show up today.
Yeah, I think before we dive into the topic of lies, I want to mention, I want to ask you what comes up in your body and your mind when you just hear the word lies. Like for me, like it's a little cringy.
Mm.
Um, and I think because there was so much shame attached to lies, that you were a bad girl if you lied, you know?
Mm.
And so I want us to remind ourselves that like we lie, lying is just a behavior. We lie in an attempt to protect ourselves. We lie in an attempt to keep connection, all really, basic human needs. Some of our lies might have hurt people. And so there's impact that we need to take responsibility for and repair. But the lying itself doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person or a terrible person. It's just something that you felt in the moment you needed to do to meet
Yeah.
some need of yours.
Yeah.
So I think approaching the topic of lies from a place of self-compassion is important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, approaching viewing other people lying to us from the perspective of compassion is important. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't let people off the hook. It doesn't mean we don't set boundaries. It doesn't mean we don't require repairs from people. But it does mean that we can practice not seeing it as a personal thing,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
it's something going on with the other person that
Yeah.
they are struggling with, or they have learned a default pattern to self protect by using lies.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. They're based in shame and fear.
Mm-hmm.
There are two childhood lies for me that really stick out because they have very different motivations.
Mm.
Um, the first one is my parents were taking me swimming out at UBC, or they were dropping me off with a friend to go swimming, and they gave me a house key. I was 9. And the message was, do not lose this house key, right?
Oh
I guess
dear.
I'd done it before. And so I go swimming, tra la la. However, I made it home with the friend. I can't remember, but we arrive home. There is no house key. I can't remember how quickly the architecture of the lie emerged. But I remember we had to sit out on the back deck for hours, I think, waiting for the parents to arrive. Well, I had time to, I guess, establish lies and fear in my body. So the lie that I told them was that I didn't know what had happened to the key. I definitely had not lost the key. I told them that I remembered specifically putting it in the locker at the pool. I double checked, in fact. I really doubled down. I can be quite convincing. Um, I've had to use this skill much in my life. I've chosen to use this skill. Anyway, so the conclusion that I had come to, parents, was that the key must have disappeared by magic.
Must
Poof,
have, for
it is not
sure.
my
That
fault.
is
Yeah, at
definitely what
every
happened.
step I checked in with the key. I did everything I could have done, and they just listened and nodded and let me run out of words. And then she showed me the key and said, "You left it in the back seat of the car." So there
That
was
is
no
the best.
yeah, no hiding from that. Must have been magic. So that's the one lie. The other lie,
Okay,
totally different.
I need to pause you here
Oh,
because
okay.
being a parent, I have all these questions. What else did your parents say? Anything else, or like it just sort of got dropped after that?
It would have, so I don't remember specifically, but knowing my family patterns, it would have been dropped, except to mention it again, like, oh, and that time with the key, or like, is this like when you lost the key?
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great. Thank you. That helps.
you're welcome. The second lie, completely different motivation. As I say, I remember arriving home. It must have been from grade 8 or 9. So I would have been 13 or 14, maybe. And telling my parents, and I remember the feeling of generating this lie on the walk home. And the lie was that I had met Madonna. I'd run into Madonna on the way home.
I love that you have the awareness of what it feels like to be in generating mode. I'm generating the lie. I think that all of us could be supported and our lives would be richer if we brought more awareness to the moments when we are generating the lie.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious to know how you would unpack these child's lies as a family therapist. Um, yeah.
Well, you're lying about the key. Like, I'm curious, what were you afraid of if you were to say, I have no idea where the key is?
I think a lot of my fears in life boil down to disappointing or angering my parents isn't quite right. They don't get angry, but it's this like disappointment that feels like the end of the world. You know, I've
Mm-hmm.
often said if mom said it was okay, I could break all the laws. Like even going to prison would be allowed because mom said
Right.
it was okay.
You want to please mom.
Yeah.
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 So, does that mean that potentially like not disappointing mom is better than them waving the key in front of your face and sort of obviously catching the lie? Like that felt better than potentially disappointing mom, or that connected you also with, oh, I disappointed them, like they obviously caught me in a lie? Like how was that for you?
Yeah, I didn't avoid any of the bad feelings. I just had also a bunch of nonsense on top of it. So I had then all the bad feelings of disappointing mom. Plus, I've now disappointed her with a lie that apparently you could poke some holes in. And so then feeling ashamed and stupid about that, right?
Okay. Do you know, or do you imagine, like, did that change your trajectory with lying to your parents over time?
No, no. Maybe more Heidi, you
More.
know, more Heidi. Yeah,
So
it's
even
just
more
this
Heidi. Okay.
Heidi. Yeah, more hiding, less talking. Um, yeah, it really is the feeling of like, oh, Stephanie. Like it doesn't feel like there's anywhere to go from there. It's just
Right.
like this brick. Yeah.
That's so interesting because part of me would think, when we feel bad about something, like you already felt bad, you didn't want to disappoint your mom, then you realize I did, and then I told this lie that I got busted in and feel even more ashamed. You might think like, "Oh, I felt even worse. That didn't feel good. Let me
Mm,
tell the truth next time." But that's not actually what happened. You're like, "Let me become more Heidi. Let me
yeah.
try even harder to like perfect this, story making, lie generating." And I think that's really common.
Yeah.
It's really common to be like, "Ooh, that means I got to work even harder at hiding the truth." And how sad is that? And how sad that that's what preoccupies a 9-year old's mind.
Mm, yeah.
Like that actually makes me really sad to think about, you were going and you were having fun with your friend and you got home and you realize you didn't have the key, and immediately you're like, I need to think of all the best story to tell my parents about why I don't have the key. And I can just imagine the fear and the panic
Yeah.
that goes through a child's mind and body trying to dream something up. And
Ugh.
not, and then after that, after we've dreamt something up, the actual saying it to our parents, what do we have to cut off from ourselves from to be able to say this thing that we know is true or not true, right? And what are we feeling at that time? Are we like feeling scared we're getting busted? Are we totally disassociated telling this lie? Those are all the questions that come to my mind. And I put myself sort of in a 9-year-old girl's situation, and all I feel is ick. Like, how gross.
Wow. It's no wonder I turned to drugs and alcohol. It's
Shortly
no
after
wonder.
that. Right?
Yeah, there's only so much dissociating you can do with your own brain, you know? Woo. Yeah.
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 Right? Like, what would have made a difference? What do you imagine, like now in hindsight, looking back, what do you imagine would have made a difference for you to like either not even go to like wondering, should I lie about this? Should I make something up? Or like sitting with it and then realizing, yeah, it's not a good idea. I should just tell them what happened.
Yeah, I know exactly what would have been helpful for me there. It would have been some compassionate space and a bit of levity.
Mm,
And to be fair, I think my mom can express levity in a way that might not appear to others. She's can be dry, um, and I think especially as a sensitive child, I might have taken her levity to not be, to be something harder than it was.
mm-hmm,
Um, but definitely the feeling of it's okay to make mistakes. These are learning experiences. You're
mm-hmm,
not bad or wrong
mm-hmm.
would have been something that would have been helpful for me.
Yeah. And like, it's pretty simple and it would have changed the trajectory. Maybe
Yeah.
not in one conversation, but I think if you grow up as a kid hearing repeatedly, it's okay if you made a mistake. It's okay if you forgot the key. It would even be okay if you lost the key.
Yeah.
We still love you. We can figure that part out.
Yeah.
Right? I remember this woman, Barbara Coloroso. She was a well-known parenting expert person, if you want to call people things like that. She had like the full-on 90s shoulder pads. Just I love listening to her talk. She's a hoot. Um, One of the things she said that I loved is one of the greatest gifts you can give a child is that no problem is so great it cannot be solved.
Mm,
And I loved that. And I like felt sad for myself as a kid that I didn't get that message. And I can just imagine how different my life would have felt and how differently I would have felt about myself if I would have had that consistent message of like, no problem is so great it cannot be solved. We can figure
yes.
this out. You're not bad. We
Yeah.
will all get over this in the end. It won't matter next year, next month, in 3 months. Let's just pull out what the learning lesson is here.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I wish for all of us is to like come back into that knowing, that belief
That's
that
what I
we can
wish
figure
for
it out.
people when we talk about reparenting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, these are things we can do for ourselves and each other as adults and retread those neural pathways and our internal patterns that um, might keep this sort of running away from ourselves
Mm-hmm.
alive within us when we'd rather be present.
Yeah. Right. Like you can't be present when you're trying to sit there dreaming up a lie. You can't be present when you are speaking lies like through your mouth. You can't be, that it's happened. And like how disassociated we have to be to
Yeah.
live like that.
And then how refined, right? As you become a seasoned liar, you start telling lies that are based so much in truth that you don't have to keep track of the lies. They just become folded into your reality. And then you're living in this intricate
Mm.
network of slight untruths that just doesn't feel aligned or in integrity or self
Mhm.
compassionate or self accepting. It speaks
Yeah.
to not living a life that feels good to you.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, it hit me this sadness feeling of adults who lie and have gotten into that protective habit pattern of lying, whether it's outright lies or like withholding the truth. And it makes me sad because that ultimately, I think, brings a lot of just downfall and disconnection into their lives, in their relationships. But it all started somewhere. You don't just lie because you want to and it feels good. But somewhere there was a little child who felt that it would be safer, potentially safer, to lie. And then that became the protective pattern. And you get so fragmented from your inner truth that that feels normal. It
Yeah.
becomes the way of being. And, I've been with someone who self protected in that way. And I felt furious being on the other side of that. And also deep sadness to imagine the life that someone lived, feeling such a strong need to withhold the truth and lie
Well, and what it
to the
means
point.
about the reality today, too, for them, right? Like, it's so hard for us to believe as wounded, self protecting children. It's so hard for us to believe that the people we know and love today wouldn't accept us. We can't be ourselves. We can't be honest. That's the worldview we're carrying when we're behaving that way.
And that is so sad. And that is something that I know both of us are passionate about, helping people reprogram and reparent themselves to believe that no matter what you have done, right? We can figure this out. There might need to be some boundaries. There might need to be repairs. I might feel very angry and disappointed and hurt, but I would rather know the truth. And the truth is going to help us either become stronger and closer, or it will lead to decisions that need to be made, other decisions that need to be made. But at least it's a life built on the foundation of truth.
Yeah.
Um, I'm debating on whether to ask you about Madonna right now or to talk about my experience with lies and the kids and their lies. Is there much you want to say about what was behind your encounter with Madonna?
Well, there's not much there. There was, in fact, no encounter even to speak of. But I think this is sort of a self aggrandizing thing that I think is important to bring forward
Mhm.
because when we feel, inadequate or like we need to demonstrate value or express some degree of coolness or something, there's so much BS that can go into that and so much disconnection from self and inability to express self and connect with like your actual passions in life, to be able to express those maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's not unusual for us to tell little dinky self-aggrandizing lies to either entertain people or like feel some flutter of excitement in the moment. Something that I think is important to bring attention to.
Yeah, for sure. Like I can relate to telling lies like that. It was like not as exciting as Madonna. And the trajectory of this lie and like how it came back like maybe 20 years later is interesting. So I remember growing up feeling very different from everyone I grew up with, like being this Chinese kid. Everyone, like all my friends are white, everyone in the neighborhood is white. And I have no idea really what compelled me to make up this lie, like this specific one. But I know that more deeply underneath was I wanted to feel like a part of something. I wanted to feel like I fit in. And I think the lie was something like, yeah, my grandpa also fought in the war. Grandpa did not fight in the war, like at all. And there was no like this was not a misunderstanding. Like it just never happened. But that seemed like a thing to say, to be like, my life is sort of like yours, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I desperately wanted my life and my being to be like others at that time in my life. And like it was a lie that like no one pressed me on, nobody really cared about, but I knew it was a lie,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I sort of forgot about it and like wasn't one that I carried on for years and like embellished and elaborated on, but it was a lie I knew I told.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward I don't know how many decades later. I was in my mid-20s, I think. I was in the Netherlands, and I had my dream internship doing work that I loved, helping families. And I had the best supervisor, like the best boss you could ever want to have. And we just connected and clicked and, shared very openly with each other. And maybe part of what helped in that was she was, I believe, Indonesian Dutch. So maybe born in the Netherlands, and her parents from Indonesia. And we were talking one day, and I do not know at all how we got to this topic, but somehow she had told me when I was a kid, I lied about something like very similar, like my grandfather was in the war or something. And I was like, are you serious? This is amazing. I said, I told that lie too. And we just had a laugh about it. And we also felt what was deeper underneath that desire to belong, that long-standing feeling of I'm different, my family is different, there's something wrong with us.
Yeah.
And I remember in that moment feeling so free, because it was the first time I'd ever been honest about that lie, because it was like, I don't know, never came up after that when I was a kid. But to be able to tell someone, yeah, I lied about that, and there was no shame. It was almost like a celebration of like, you get it. You get why I told this ridiculous lie. And this is a woman who I saw lived her life with integrity. And I know that she saw that I lived my life in integrity. So like there was no doubting that, like, these are people who are not walking through life telling lies everywhere.
Right.
But just this common knowing of how much you long to feel like you fit in, and how you would do anything, to try to grow that feeling.
Yeah.
And for us to be adult women and to be able to laugh about that, and also I think feel some compassion for our younger selves. That was a really healing moment for me of, oh, someone else knows what it's like to feel really like they don't belong, and like to go to the extreme of lying to people about something ridiculous in an effort to feel more belonging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much relief. You're making me think of the secrets processes we do in conscious relationship training, and how we've held these things internally, and maybe we've even forgotten about them, but they hold some kind of energy, and sharing them as adults might feel scary at first, and it's then such a relief. It's such a
Yeah.
relief.
What I noticed about that secrets process in that group work, it felt so scary and also so liberating after. And so just, I felt so at peace and so much more deeply connected with people.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the opposite that you might imagine feeling, hearing some pretty like intense things that people have done and felt ashamed about. And what I noticed, by the time we did that exercise in the group, there's already an established sense of connection to people. You've seen people's dark sides, bright sides. You have an appreciation for these people as human beings, right? And what I noticed is when I heard people's secrets, I was like, oh, I love you even more. Like, I have even more like compassion for you, of like, what were you going through that caused you to do something like that?
Right.
And it wasn't this compassion of like, I think you should be completely off the hook and never take responsibility. It was this, I feel compassion for you. I get as a human why you might have felt that choice needed to be made. And also, I'm growing my trust in you that you're going to go repair that thing. right? The more you start knowing yourself, the more you want to grow your self acceptance muscle and your ability to be self responsible. I see that you're going to become someone, and you are becoming someone who's going to take responsibility for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that just felt like such a deep, fulsome way to love and care for someone. Of like, I see why you did this thing that, you know, the world would deem as horrible. And I also trust you to go take care of it now.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of this feeling a parent can have for a child, and a feeling that a parent can support a child in growing, right? Of, I see you did this thing. It was hurtful or harmful. And I get why you felt the need to. And also, I love you still. And I trust you to go make things better, to repair that. And
Yeah.
if you need help repairing that, I will support you in helping, you know, you work out how to make a repair.
Mm-hmm.
How amazing would that be if we all felt that in our lives about the things we feel we need to keep hidden?
Yeah, as opposed to shaming and extrapolating into the future a bunch of meaning making about how bad and wrong we are.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right? If we
prefer
just
your
knew,
option.
it's like you knew, like reflecting back on your 9-year-old self, you knew if your parents would have just said in a way that you could really understand and feel,
Mm-hmm.
we love you no matter what. It's okay if you lost the key. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay if you threw it away. We will figure it out,
We'll figure it out.
right?
Yeah.
We still love you. You're still a good kid.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, that's some nice messaging I would have loved to receive. Definitely there's a feeling of like training, like I was being trained. And so this one action I've taken now is an indication that all future actions will be flawed, you know? That kind of
Mm,
thing.
you mean like your parents are going to see you through a different lens from that
No,
point
like they
forward?
would actively be like, you keeping this key is our sign that you will be okay in the future. If you lose this key, you're doomed in various ways. Let's all sit in shame and fear about that.
Wow, no pressure at all.
None.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This reminds me of lies that we had to deal with. I had to deal with as a parent, right? My youngest, he must have been 5, 6, young. And yeah, probably around that time, 6 maybe. It was when we were facilitating women's groups. And at that time, you know, there's just people paid monthly with cash. It was pretty simple, basic. I don't usually have cash laying around, but I think I had some cash laying in the hallway on the shelf. And like, I don't know how I noticed. Maybe it was because I needed to give you half of that money. And I was like, where is the money? Like, it was right here. And it's disappeared.
Must have been magic.
It must have been magic. And it wasn't like just $20. It was like maybe 80 or 100 just disappeared. And I was like, how does money just disappear? And I can't remember exactly what happened after noticing that money had disappeared magically. But I had a sense of who was responsible. But I didn't know for sure. So I talked to the kids. I said, hey, there was this money here and it's missing now. Do either of you know what happened to it? Have you seen it? One of them was like, nope, I haven't seen it. And he's the one who would never lie, just afraid to lie, afraid to be caught in a lie. So he's like, and I could tell this is not a lie. The other one, I could tell. However, he was adamant, knew nothing about it. And we had a little history of like smaller lies before that. So it was a little bit, not a concerning pattern, sort of a little bit humorous and a little bit developmentally, to be expected kind of lies in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, how do I want to handle this as a parent? So I said, I didn't say, like, I know you're lying. Tell me what happened. Where is the money? I said, okay, well, if you do remember what happened, or if it does turn out that you took it, then please let me know, right? Because that's helpful for me to know, because I need to give this money to Stephanie and I need to figure that out. And also, if you did take it, that would be okay. I still love you. You're not a bad kid. We can figure it out. And if you tell me the truth, then I can help you better. That was always a line we used.
Wow.
If you tell me the truth, I can help you better. Right? And I want to help you. And, as a parent, you're sort of juggling that. I need to like take this seriously. This kid needs to know what the boundaries are. And oh my God, is my kid going to turn into like a pathological liar? Like those are things that cross your mind, even if you don't take them all that seriously. They do whip across. And I was like, no, like I want to remain calm. I don't want to be accusatory. I really want this kid to feel free to tell the truth because that's what he wants to do. But I knew it would require me to be very, very patient. And I could feel the part of my body that wanted to grill him. Are you sure? Are you sure? But it was here. Oh, remember that time that you cut a hole in your shirt and told me you didn't do it? Is this the same thing? Right? I didn't
Wow.
say any of those things. I thought those things, but I didn't say them. And then, you know, throughout the next day or two, a few days, I just sprinkle it in. Have you thought about that a little bit more? Is there something you want to tell me? Right? And it was just little seed plantings. You know that sometimes we all lie because we're afraid we might get in trouble. And like, I've lied too, and it's okay. And like, even if you've lied, we can figure it out. Right. And I think along the way said, maybe when you saw the money, it seemed so exciting. And you thought, wow, that's a lot of money. I don't usually have that kind of money. It'd be sort of neat to just tuck it away somewhere. And you thought it was a good idea. And maybe you're starting to think it might not have been a very good idea, but you don't know how to tell anyone. And that's okay. You could tell me if that's what's happening. Right. So it was just very like sweet and gentle. And this, like, maybe this is what's happening. And meanwhile, like as a parent, I'm like, my deeper inner core knows I want to handle this way. And the other fear parts are like, oh my God, do you need to be more firm? Like, do you need to call this out? But I stuck with it. And eventually he came and he said, I
Wow.
took it. I
Damn.
took the money. And I think he was crying and he felt really bad. And he like came out with all of it.
Oh, what a sweetie.
It was probably like, yeah, $80 or something. And in my mind, I'm like laughing because I'm like, this kid, like, obviously, like, you don't think these things through. Like, how are you going to somehow manifest like $80 in front of your parents and not have anyone wonder where it came from, and
Magic is the
where
answer.
are you going to spend it and how, and like, what are you going to do with it? But anyways, I said to him, like, I'm really happy. I'm really glad you felt comfortable telling me the truth because, I want to be able to trust you. And I can only do that if you practice telling me the truth. And I want to be able to help you. And I can only do that if you tell me the truth. All right. So he did, got the money back. And then he had spent some time with his dad. And his dad and I were texting, like, how do we want to handle this at this point? Like, is it just a returning of the money and that's it? Some people might think, oh, should there be some punishment, whatever. And we were pretty clear, like, we're not into punishing, but we want him to know that, like, this is not an okay thing to do and that it breaks trust, right? When you take things that are not yours and then on top of that, don't tell the truth about it. And so we had decided, like, okay, maybe he needs to, there's the verbal apology, right? And then um, I think maybe we gave him some choices. Like, how do you, I think his dad helped him with that. Like, how do you want to make things better with mommy about this? And I think he said, I want to draw her a picture.
Oh,
So I think he drew me a picture
oh,
of like being sorry about taking the money or something like that.
so
But like
sweet.
that was how he repaired it. And like now
Wow.
that we're like years down the road from that, we'll laugh about that together. Remember that time? But it's really from a humorous place. And
Yeah.
the wild thing is like he hasn't done anything like that
Wow.
since. Like, I mean, maybe he's so good that I haven't detected something, but like from what I sense has happened, like there hasn't been this withholding the truth and lying, like
Yeah.
taking things that are not yours to that degree at all since that time. And
Wow.
and what's interesting is my sense as a mom is he remembers it very clearly, that experience, but not in a shameful way,
Wow.
in a way of, yeah, that wasn't a good idea.
Wow.
And that's what I want as a mom, that like
Mm.
he knows for himself it's not a good idea.
Wow.
And that he knows even if I do something that I initially thought was a good idea and I realized later it was not a good idea, it's okay to tell my parents. They're not going to lose it on me. They're not going to shame me. They're not going to tell me I'm bad. They're actually just going to help me.
Wow.
And
Mm.
so that is a story that goes down now in our family.
Amazing. One of the things I love the most about your parenting and your relationship with your kids and just the way you approach their development generally and people generally is that there's a reason they're doing what they're doing and you get curious about what that reason is. There seems to be no part of you that just dismisses anyone as being a little shit who's acting up, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, like
Um,
occasionally I'll think like you're being a little shit and acting up, but I don't say that out loud. And I
mm,
catch that. I notice I'm thinking that. I'm like, okay, I need to see
mm,
how I can get back to that compassionate curiosity because this is not going to help any of us if I stay in the you're a little shit
mm.
mode.
Yeah. Well, and it's a dismissal, right? Like, I think in my family, definitely that would be the response to kids. This is a little
Mhm.
shit who's acting up and needs to be taught some kind of a lesson. Also, as adults, when things don't make sense, the response in my family is, oh, they must be drunk or they must be on drugs or they must be insane. Like, there's
Right.
never, the seed is not, let's figure out what's going on or get curious or have compassion. It's always
Mhm.
something is completely insane and forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what I've noticed, I think a thread in my parenting I've tried to be intentional about is I want to make it easy to tell the truth. I
Mm,
want to make it easy to do the right thing. I want to make it easy to come out of protective patterning. I want that opportunity to not just be there once, because sometimes as parents we'll give it once, but if our kid doesn't immediately come and do the thing we want them to do, we switch and we
right.
get harder and the shame comes out, right? I try really hard to stay in that open place of if I can hang on to this open, compassionate place, they will come. Eventually, they will come. Eventually, the truth will be told and we will figure out what happened. But if I add all this pressure, and I could tell too, like, because, I'm human and, you're reacting in the moment and your fears come up of is my kid turning into some like socially something, something, whatever. Um, I can tell when my fear part takes over and wants to like grill and push that it just stresses him out. And I'm like, even if he were to admit it, I don't want it to come out of this stressful, fearful place. Right. I just want him to get to the point of, it really doesn't feel good to hold this lie anymore. And my mom is really trying to help me see that it would be better just to tell her the truth. And I think that she might be right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give that a try and see what happens. And I think that that was a really monumental moment in our relationship, because it could have been a really easy moment to lose my mind and to get really like just mad and rigid and shaming. And then to have the other kid, right? The other kid wants to like be like, you suck. Like, why would you steal money and all this stuff? And to help the other kids see, hey, sometimes we do things because they seem like a good idea initially. And then we realize they're not, or we still think maybe they're a good idea, but they're not a good idea. And we get scared. And so we lie about it. And that's okay. But we're here to figure out what happened. But we don't need to make anyone feel bad about themselves while we do that.
Yeah.
And I think that helps the other kid too see that if I ever find myself in that situation, I can count on my parents to be pretty chill. They might not love it. I'm going to have to fix it and repair, but they're not going to make me feel terrible about myself because they're being pretty chill with my brother. And
Yeah.
like those moments are so huge. Like we as children are not just noticing how our parents treat us, we're noticing how our parents treat um each other. We're noticing how our parents treat our siblings. We're noticing how parents treat other kids, neighborhood kids,
Waiters,
right?
waitresses. Yeah,
All the people.
totally.
And we take information from that to discern which parts of myself should I hide, which parts are safe to show.
Yeah.
Right. So I've tried to be really intentional with letting like my kids see how I handle things with their sibling, because I want each time to be something that grows some confidence in the other kid
Yeah.
of, oh, if I were to be in this situation, I would be, you know, I would be supported. I
Yeah.
would be accepted.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you've been saying and the way you make space for your kids. So we've been talking a lot about lies because we've done something,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also the lies of not sharing who we are, not expressing what's
Mm,
true for us, what we
yes.
like.
Yeah.
You want to say anything about that?
This is funny. I don't know why this came up, but I remember lying about liking Justin Bieber and Britney Spears.
That you
Like,
do or don't?
like I do. Like I like them,
Yeah.
but like pretending like I don't, because I remember being
I'm
with
wearing
someone
a
who just,
Bieber hoodie right now.
that's amazing. I love it. I was with someone who I just felt was a bit snobby about music. And I just always felt a little shameful about what I liked.
Right.
And so definitely I could feel that internal, like, oh, I better not say it like that,
Yeah.
you know? So I remember that feeling. And then I really remember the um, growing up. This was started from as a child and it definitely went into adulthood, which is I'm fine and nothing's wrong. When
The
people
most
say, what's
pervasive
wrong?
lie. Yeah.
Are you okay? I'm fine.
Yeah.
What's wrong? Nothing. Yeah. I really didn't feel the welcoming, the invitation, and that my parents had the capacity to hear what was not okay.
Yeah.
So I just started pretending like I'm fine,
Right.
or using I'm fine essentially to say, well, you wouldn't understand anyways.
Yeah.
Right. And so I definitely hid a lot from my parents behind those two phrases, I'm fine and nothing.
Right.
And whenever I talk to parents when their children are not wanting to share anything with them, We talk about the need to repair the relationship from the very basics, right? Because telling someone your deepest inner workings is the most deep form of intimacy. You have to feel really safe in order to do that. Safe that the connection can hold that truth, and safe that you'll be accepted still and not shamed. And a lot of people will wonder why does my partner not tell me things? Why do my kids not tell me things? Sometimes it's related to a pervasive protective pattern that someone has gotten into. And sometimes there's an element of someone not feeling, based on past experiences, that it's safe to show their true selves to us. And sometimes, like, especially in adult relationship, that hurt and that protection started decades ago.
Yeah.
Has nothing to actually do with you, but it's now a pervasive protective pattern.
Yeah.
Right. And for children, that pattern does start in the home. And some children, like me, are more sensitive. So I think we're watching nuances, tone, facial expressions. So sometimes it's not even that our parent is dismissive, but we might interpret it as that. And we need a little bit of extra affirmation that that's not the case, right? That things are actually okay. You are loved and it's okay.
Yeah.
Some kids need a little bit more extra support to feel safe and comfortable sharing their truth. Other kids will just like blurt it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Just wired differently.
I think my mom has a tendency to laugh in delight. Like she'll identify with something and laugh because she's delighted at the human thing that's happening. And I think I interpreted that as being mocked a lot. So I hid
Mm,
a lot of myself in those
mm-hmm,
ways.
mm-hmm,
One of the examples I like to use in our groups when it comes to sharing of yourself something that you love, and where there might be an emotional charge with that, and being able to identify those for ourselves, is to find something in your life that you know you love and that you have no problem expressing, defending. You're surprised anybody would have a problem with it. And the example I use is loving chocolate. If you love
mm,
chocolate, probably there's no emotional charge related to that. And when someone says, "Oh, I don't like chocolate," you don't take that personally. You just go like, "Oh, that's wild. Like chocolate's the best. I don't know what you mean," kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
There is a place we can come to internally where we can feel that degree of comfort with sharing and expressing our joy about everything to do with ourselves and our preferences and our desires. And that's what I want for everybody.
Yes. Yes, because now I can say, I love Justin Bieber.
Love them. What a doll.
And I love Britney.
Yeah.
And listening to their music makes me happy. And I don't care if you're not a fan of pop music and you think it's all, overproduced. I
Yeah.
like it.
I hope Brittany's all right.
Yes.
Love her. Yeah.
Right. But like this again sounds, simple and insignificant, but be able, like you said, to be able to stand firmly in what I like and declare it.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you like it or not. I'm not going to impose it on you, but I don't feel the need to hide it.
Yeah.
And I want us to all feel that way about everything in our life that matters to us.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
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 Okay. We're at an hour. I will say joining our program, Priming the Body for Peace, will help you accomplish all of the things that we have been describing over the course of this episode. I feel like we've been sales pitching every episode. Oh, here's my cat. This is Jonathan Pickles.
Hi, Mr.
So,
Pickles.
yeah, let's not say too much today about priming, but let's maybe just, if there's anything you want to say briefly, and then we can go into our closing practice.
What do I want to say? I think I want to say take a look at what priming is about if it interests you. Priming the Body for Peace. You can find it on our website, on Instagram, Wholehearted Loving. And if you have any questions, I think we did a pretty good job in the frequently asked questions section. But if there's anything that you're wondering about, you wonder if it would be a good fit or for someone you know, message us and we're happy to talk you through that.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Do you have a closing practice I can do with a cat on my lap?
Yes. Okay. I like this actually. Okay. Stephanie can use Mr. Pickles and we can use our bodies. And I want you to imagine, so again, we're always going to connect to that anchoring part of the body and notice your breath. And Steph, I would love for you to pet Mr. Pickles in whatever way feels good for you. And because you're petting him, it would be helpful if you attune to what felt good for him. But for us, I'm using my arm right now, and you can pretend your arm is a cat. And how would you pet the cat? And it's funny because I used to always think like at massages, I'm a deep pressure person. Like I want it to hurt. I want to feel the pain. And I always thought that I didn't like gentle touch until I practiced it more. And I was like, I really do like gentle touch. Huh. How interesting. But I just always assumed that I didn't. And I had people touch me in this way that was gentle, that felt really gross. And I
Oh,
guess I assumed that's the only way you can touch gently.
right.
And so right now, like I'm just sort of running my hand across my arm and I know what feels good. But there was a time where I didn't know what felt good. And so if you're in that place, let yourself discover what feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
I love
Thanks,
that.
Mr. Pickles.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Pickles. And thank you, Chi Chi. Is
Mm-hmm.
there anything else you want to say before we sign off today?
Nope. It's all
Okay.
good.
Well, thank you for being with us. As always, please like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share it with somebody that you care about. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Mr. Pickles.